What is the final spiritual practice that you take part in before awakening? Whatever religion, culture, or ancient practices you even look at, you realize that there are so many out there. You have meditation, you have pilgrimages, you have fasting, you have paying and helping the needy, you have compassionate exercises and actions. There are so many different practices that are out there. And even nowadays, in psychological therapy, you notice that some of these practices have actually been seeped in to the space and used to help a lot of patients who suffer from mental health problems and so on. Now, I find this question interesting because most practices, when I say most, I'd say 95 to 99% of all these practices, they all lead to one thing. And that is really the thing or the practice that you are doing right before an awakening happens. Now, let's say, for instance, that a typical individual like myself or you, who has undergone or has just begun their spiritual journey, the journey into seeking the truth, the journey to discover, the journey to realize reality for what it really is. On this journey, being exposed to all these different practices, you may take on some practices, you may already have practices that are part of your conditioning because you are coming from a particular religion. You may have practices that you just made up. But in essence, all of these different practices, they all lead to one thing. And that one thing is also the final practice. And the final practice is just being. It's just being. It's the easiest practice, yet the most potent and powerful practice. And at the same time, it's the most challenging practice and the hardest to realize. So how does that make sense? Because the two statements I just said contradict. It's challenging because all these practices that you are exposed to in the beginning, which may work for a while and then they don't work and then you have to move on, and then you listen to one speaker and this speaker, he seems to be guiding you, or it seems to be helpful in some way, and then later on they're not helpful, and a constant motion takes place. All of these practices, they are also necessary because they lead you to pure being eventually. Eventually, whether you are collecting sacred rocks or gems, whether you are going to specific sites, temples or monasteries or places, or you are speaking to or trying to be in the presence of different individuals, eventually it leads you to the same point, and that is the point of just pure being. So in a way, me telling you this is somewhat of a shortcut, but you may have to undergo all of the other practices. There are people out there who will meditate for 2-3 hours a day, and who will have a perfect diet and still are unable to just be present, pure being. So what does this pure being actually look like? What do I mean with just pure being? Let's start off by speaking about a particular practice, such as meditation. I've mentioned this before in my previous videos, but in essence, meditation is impossible to do Meditation is not something that you can do. There is no doing. In fact, meditation is an undoing. You are truly meditative if there is just pure being. When you tell yourself, I'm going to go sit down and meditate for a certain period of time, and then you tell yourself, I'm going to listen to my thoughts or watch the breath or whatever methodology you use. In essence, for as long as you are there trying to meditate or trying to be meditative, there is no such thing as meditation. It's not taking place. But the moment you even let go of trying to meditate as you are in your meditation posture or whatever practice you're taking part in, as soon as you let go of trying to meditate, all there is what's happening. All there is what there is. This is the state of pure being. And it's not really a state, because states imply that states can change and transfer, transform, transmute. It's just pure being. It's the primary and essential state that is also the placeholder of all experiences that take place. But the light of pure being gets covered up with the stress and the frustration and the running around or the different turbulence that takes place in people's lives. So this is the case with meditation. This is how meditation as a practice is supposed to allow you to be in pure being. And this is the case with many other practices. Another practice is fasting. So when you fast, you limit yourself or don't eat for a certain period of time, or you limit certain types of foods. But in essence, when you fast, what is truly happening is that you are unconditioning. You are undoing the conditioning that you need a particular object or food to fulfill you. This is one of the things that takes place. Another thing is that it may develop some form of patience so that you allow yourself to settle and just be eventually. Another thing that fasting allows is for you to recognize that if one pleasure, such as food, is taken care of, where you are eating a certain type of food or eating at a certain time, it frees up a lot of energy and space, and it allows you to also recognize that if you can do with one type of pleasure, or if you can do without one type of pleasure, you can also do without other types of pleasure. And so really it's an undoing process so that you can just be. Another type of spiritual practice would be to go to a holy site, a pilgrimage. Whether you are visiting a holy shrine, or you are taking part in a pilgrimage or visiting a temple, whatever it may be, you may feel some type of peace. You feel a certain quality in the space that you are in. What's happening there is that you are allowing yourself to feel this quality. There are other times where perhaps if you have some form of distress or frustration, the worldly life is somehow getting the best of you, you have a crazy deadline that you need to complete, whichever circumstance, you may be in the exact same place, but you may not feel that peace anymore. And that's because you are not allowing yourself to, because there is something that you have admitted or agreed with yourself with, that this is more important than the peace that can be felt here. So being in the presence of this shrine or person or temple or holy place, you feel this peace because you are just being. The shrine itself is a symbolism to point you towards just being. What other practices are out there? There are so many more practices out there. Acts of kindness. When you are taking part in acts of kindness, when you see that there is a poor individual who does not have a roof over their head and you are putting together some funds to build them a house, when you are taking part in this action, you are putting aside or undoing the ego in a way, or psychological tendencies that try to gravitate you towards holding on to these funds that you have. Why waste this? I worked so hard. I've worked tirelessly to accumulate this wealth. Why am I wasting it towards helping this person? But when you do, you are essentially weakening the muscle of greed. You are weakening the muscle of holding on to an identity or a goal or an image. And so you are dissolving that. And so this is also a process of undoing, which once again creates space that allows you to just be. So you can see that all these spiritual practices, in essence, they are there to facilitate some type of undoing process, some type of removal of preconditioning, so that you can just be. And so the final practice really is just being. Maybe we don't have to take part in a particular practice and we can just sit here and just be. It's really the true moment in which you are doing nothing. Because if you are sat here, someone can observe you and say, this person is doing nothing. But this is still active. So you're still thinking, you're still doing something. And so true being is the recognition that you exist. Before you speak about something, before you do something, before you express yourself, before you consume anything, you have to exist. It's a prerequisite. It's primary to whatever happens in life. You are existing. And that is not to imply that existing is a doing activity. You are here. And then you can be happy, sad, and speak and run and do and work and all of these things. So being is the practice of recognizing that you exist, that you are here right now, before even the thoughts that appear in the mind. For the thoughts that appear in the mind are recognized and witnessed because you exist. Every spiritual practice, in some way, is truly a spiritual practice if it's trying to place you or point you towards presence, if it's allowing you to be. This is a spiritual practice. If you are praying to God, for some of you guys this may be controversial, but if you are praying to God or a higher power or a deity, the act of prayer is an act of surrender. You are admitting to yourself that you are surrendering. And in this act of surrender, what takes place? The ego becomes less valued in a way. That's the wrong word. The ego becomes more transparent so that the light of being can shine. And the beauty about being is you don't need to be on a pilgrimage. You don't need to be sat on your meditation pillow. You don't need to be doing anything. In fact, whatever you are doing anyway, you are able to recognize that there is the pure being taking place before anything that is done anyway. So you can get on with your life. You wake up in the morning, you have your morning routine, and you get up and go to work. And as you go to work, you may be in your car or commuting in some type of way. You may be speaking to a particular individual. You may be intensely focused on a particular task. But throughout all of this, there can be the recognition of being. This is the most potent and powerful spiritual practice ever, because every spiritual practice is actually trying to get you to just be. Whatever spiritual practice that may be. If it's not pointing you towards or allowing you to be, then it's not a spiritual practice. But you can go further to say that everything in life is actually pointing you towards being, so that you may be. When you face moments of suffering, instead of avoiding them, if you address these and embrace them, you are allowing yourself to shine the light of being upon the problem. And so this is an invitation from me to you to just be. It's everything you've ever wanted in your life. It's everything you've ever been looking for in your life. Just be here now. Your thoughts are flying around with different ideas and thoughts and whatever's taking place. Witness it. Observe it as it is. But be before you identify with these thoughts. Before you try to hold on to any particular object, thought, idea, belief, person, place. There is just being taking place. You exist and you are before anything even takes place. You are here before anything takes place. If the past is coming up the whole time, if you've just gone through some form of heartbreak, or you have just lost someone, or the past just keep creeping up, allow it. Because there is still the pure light of being that is present. But the moment you identify with whatever creeps up and comes up and appears, is also the moment you have covered up the pure light of being. It can never really be covered up, but there is the illusion that you are not being. And as you are allowing yourself to be, ask yourself the question, is there anything that is missing right now? you were just here, feeling the sensations around your body, some tingling sensation. You don't have to look at your hands to know that they are there. You don't have to touch your face to know that it's there. It's the pure light of just being that is recognizing all of this. And so rest in being. This is the final practice before awakening takes place. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this has shed some light on what spiritual practice to take part in next. Just notice that it's all about just being here now. And the funny thing is that as you are allowing yourself to just be, something will eventually just come along and try to entice you to identify yourself with it. Hey, do this and do that, and why should I do, or there's a challenge, why should I do this, why should I do that? But the moment you notice that being is primary and is essential, and that it's there before anything even appears in reality, there is just pure being. Others refer to this as consciousness, others refer to this as awareness, others refer to this as God. If you just allow yourself to be, the moment you notice that this is primary to reality, this comes before anything else appears in reality, there is no justification strong enough to entice you to not be and ride the illusory, fragmented reality that's been conditioned by thoughts and ideas and images. This is the space of true oneness. This is the space of completeness. This is the space of boundlessness. This is the space where there is no one there. Yet everything just is. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't hesitate to have a look at this next video here. This is Hassan from the Spiritual Walks, and we are all on a journey towards the truth.